incredibly old tech and finding solutions practically and DIY ist-ly. This is Biafran Samurai Tech, and I'm here to help you solve those upgrade problems. In this episode, we'll be focusing on a media player, basically a device you can use to play YouTube, Netflix, and any other streaming app or anything on your NAS device. I had one previously that's incredibly old now. A lot of the apps on it don't work the way they used to, and it's basically time to get rid of it. So I had to find an upgrade. There were several models that I looked at, including, of course, the Fire TV Cube, the Fire TV Stick, the various versions of the Roku, the Chromecast, Apple TV, and of course, a newer console. I had to figure out which one was the best solution for my situation. My older device is still right here. The WD TV Play media player is not working like it used to in its prime. It's basically conked out. I've had it for about 7 years, and all the apps that I used to use and some of the ones that I didn't even use no longer were supported. The Hulu app on it was no longer supported. Pandora is no longer supported, and a host of other items were no longer supported. So I was stuck with a very old version of Netflix, which worked but was very sluggish. One of the main reasons I bought this media player, the WD, was I can play a lot of my movies, videos, and photos from my NAS on my TV. That feature still works, but it's slower, a lot slower now. Pretty much everything on the market now will be much faster than this. It was hard to see which device will actually show that it works with a NAS player or something that has DLNA. DLNA allows you to store your media on a different device, making it easy to access on another device, such as a media player, anywhere in your network. So, for example, you may have a NAS drive in your utility closet or in a office somewhere. By having DLNA on there, you can stream from your TV, stream to your TV, stream to your tablet, or any device, and it makes it a lot easier. That was one thing I looked for, and I did find it on here. So the overall scope of this project was to upgrade a home theater, not necessarily because I wanted to, but because many of the devices are incredibly old and are starting to fail. Just like I pointed out, the media player, that one is pretty much derelict. The stereo system, it's 22 years old. It's on its last leg. I even had to add a DTS decoder on it, which is literally right behind me. It makes the setup a lot complicated, especially for someone that's not really tech savvy. But for me, I was able to manage it. I got it to work. It's been working for a few years now. I've had this DTS decoder for about 9 years now. It still works most of the time, but every once in a while, we'll be watching a movie and it'll completely cut off. There will be no audio. This thing right here is a components automatic selector, which is nice for the older consoles like the Xbox, the Wii, and the former DVD player that is no longer here. Then we move on to the HDMI switch, which has the 360 that's behind me, the media player, the Blu-ray player, the Cube now. There's another port that goes to a connection for the couches, which is something that's really convenient. But with all of these devices, there's a whole jungle of wires behind this. Switching from one device to another is a little better with the automatic switches, but overall, it's still a problem. This is a 720p TV, which is nice because most of the devices out here was 720p at the time. 1080p has come and it's kind of phasing out. You have 4K and now you have 4K with HDR, which this is capable of doing. Then of course, this was a shelf system. The speakers still sound pretty decent, but I'm hearing the limits of what it can do. Its age is showing. As I'm thinking about all of these different items, I figure out what's the best one to go next. If I get this next, will it work with everything else I'm looking for? The setup I have now, before getting the 4K cube, worked pretty seamlessly. Everything worked. It didn't seem like the screen was outdated for the equipment because this was a 720p TV. Why did I choose a FireCube TV? Because it basically checked all the boxes. For one, it was 4K and not just 4K. It had 4K with HDR, Dolby Vision, and Atmos. If you don't know a lot about home theaters, Atmos is the next evolution in surround sound. Soundbars are okay, but Atmos is really like where it's at. And this little box can do it. But let me get back to HDR and Dolby Vision. I wasn't sure which one to go with. As I was doing my research, I learned that they are slightly different, but they get the same thing. If you notice, most of the newer phones have a type of HDR which gives you better color clarity, and it goes the same for these video formats. With HDR 4K, your colors are brighter, your blacks are deeper, but the way HDR 10 does it and the way that Dolby Vision does it, it's a little different. Some TVs, let's say for example LGs, have Dolby Vision, whereas the Samsungs have HDR 10 plus. I wasn't really sure which way to go, so I said, you know what, just in case, this thing can do both. One of the next major things, the reason to get the Cube is for the wealth of streaming services it has. If you're a Prime member, it automatically comes with Prime. It links to your Amazon account and is really seamless. Everything you have on your tablet or your phone, you can do it here on your big screen. So of course you have your Netflix, your Hulu, and of course the new Disney Plus. You have Crackle, a lot of network streaming apps such as CBS and the CW, and just to name a few, of course, and ESPN. And of course, recently Disney and Hulu had the thing where you get the package for all three, and they're all available here. Just for that alone, to get all of the streaming services on one device with a really fast processor is a good deal. You can't talk about only the video streaming services. There's a wealth of audio streaming services as well. Especially with the Cube, of course, you have Amazon Music, you have Pandora, and you have Spotify and other streaming services, along with internet radio and a lot of stuff you can download. It even has weather and other apps built into it. Some of them you can also download. And some of you may ask, what is the real difference between the Fire TV Cube and the Fire Stick? There is a regular version of the stick that's not 4K. Then there's the 4K stick, and then the Cube is also 4K. The main difference really is the stick, you put it in an HDMI port and you get your streaming services. The 4K one is basically the same thing. You plug it into your HDMI port, you get your streaming services in 4K. The Cube, you get all of that, but there's another big feature that the Cube has, actually two big features the Cube has that the others don't have. One thing is it has Alexa. So think of it as a Fire Stick and an Echo Dot merged together. But on top of that, because this is designed to work with home theater devices, it's capable of controlling your TV, your stereo, and any device that you have connected to it. In addition, it can control any smart home devices you have. So for example, if you have smart lights, you can control it with it also. I don't have those yet, so I can't demonstrate it to you. But I was able to set it up with this TV, which is about 8 years old now. It was able to work with it. It changes inputs, turns it on and turn it off. It was a really easy setup. What really surprised me was this incredibly old stereo. And I say incredibly old because I bought it in '98, I know. giving away my age. What really surprised me, it was able to control this incredibly old bookshelf system that I have. It was able to find the code to turn it on and turn it off, and basically that was about it. I didn't expect too much because it was much older, much older, I should say. But if you have something of a receiver, like an actual receiver, like a Sony, a Denon, Marantz, or something of that nature, that you plug in all of your devices, all of your video inputs into it, that should be no problem. And I can't speak to that yet because I still have this. Anyway, for that incredibly old device, this thing was able to do it. There was one thing that I was really hesitant about, and it kind of slowed me down for a while. I'm the type of shopper that when I find a feature that I need, I'll make sure that device has it, because there was a time when I used to go and buy things. This is probably about 20 years ago. I would buy something thinking it has that feature, bring it home, open the package, turn it on, try it, and what the package says is not exactly what I thought it was. So I ended up returning an item 3 or 4 times. This happened during the age of MP3 players. It was a pain. But nowadays, what I usually do is I check the manual, check the specs, check everything to make sure it does what I can do. In this case, I was looking for a device that I can play a lot of my media from that's stored on my NAS device. If you don't know what a NAS device is, it's basically a hard drive that's connected to your network. So my NAS drive is not here, it's somewhere in the house or my network where I can connect this to it and play movies, family photos, videos, music, CDs, whatever that's stored on there. I can also play it on my phone, play it on a tablet. Anyone in the house that's on this network can play any of those devices. I wanted to make sure that this can do that. The problem I ran into is it doesn't specifically say it in the specs. I looked at some forums, looked in different places. I really didn't see it on there. But I noticed it had something called PLEX on it, which I know is really good for that. And judging by my Kindle that I have, it has that also. It has PLEX. Well, I have PLEX on it. It has a network browser that I'm able to browse onto my network and play those same devices. It's a little harder to get to from my Kindle because it wasn't really designed for that. This had a browser built into it. At least when I opened mine, it had one on there. I basically went to the address for my NAS drive, looked at the folder, clicked on it, found the movie or song I wanted to play, and it worked. I was thinking, if it doesn't work, I'll continue using this incredibly old media player that still plays things. One of the biggest things that it plays is MKV files, and some of you know how hard it is to find a good player that plays MKV files. And this one I found it about 8.5 years ago. So I tested out the same things on this one, and it basically blows this one out of the water. So, my opinion, this checks all the boxes. It does everything I needed to do. It has Alexa on it, which I was never really a fan of it. On my tablet, I disabled it. And on this thing, I can just hit the mute button and it's completely disabled. With that being disabled, on the microphones here, you can still give it commands from the voice remotes. So there is a caveat to that also, the wake word. If you live in a house with someone's name that is similar to the wake word, you may run into an issue every time you call that person's name or someone else in your house calls that person's name. So you do have the option to go into the menu and change the wake word. So I know I haven't really gone over the specs and details, but I can say just by using this thing for a couple of weeks, it's been really good. I did turn on parental controls, so it does ask me to put in a code when it gets to rated R movies or explicit music, so that's on Prime or Amazon. Other services, you might have to enable that separately. I haven't done that yet, I've only been messing around with it. But I do have to say one thing that it mentions on the box about putting your cube away from speakers. You can see here I have it right underneath mine. I thought that was going to be a problem, so I was thinking I'm going to disable Alexa, not going to be a big deal. But when I had it on and we were watching a movie at a higher volume, it was still fine. It was able to differentiate between the sounds coming out from the speakers versus one of us saying the wake word. It was something I didn't mention earlier when I talked about how I'm able to control this incredibly old receiver or any device. This cube comes with an IR blaster. In my case, I placed it right over here, so it has line of sight to the IR receiver of the stereo. So typically, if you have a lot of devices in a cabinet, you would put this inside the cabinet with all the other devices. That way, the cube can control all of those other devices at the same time, provided it was fully programmed when you did the setup. So one of the criteria I had for this device or any device was that it had a wired Ethernet port. I know Wi-Fi has gotten a lot better nowadays. In fact, this one has Wi-Fi AC, which is one of the newer bands. It's not the newest. The newest is AX, which is Wi-Fi 6. But this is fast for most people. Unless you're a hardcore gamer or someone that needs the absolute highest throughput possible, this will be fine right here. This is actually more than enough. But anyway, I just wanted to have Wi-Fi capabilities, but I wanted to have wired as my main connection. So this one also allowed me to do that. So there are 4 ports on the back. There's an IR blaster, there's the Ethernet by way of USB, there's the HDMI, and of course the power outlets. Another one is the HDMI port. This one is a little special, and most devices nowadays do have this feature. It's called HDMI-CEC. That's a feature where one device can control another device. And if you look at your options for your TV or stereo or receiver, a lot of them do have that option. You can turn it on. So in my case, I didn't have an issue because I put the cube down here. I put the cube down here on my TV. I turned on CEC. So even though there's not line of sight, because it has that HDMI feature, this cube is able to control my TV. For example, Alexa, change to HDMI 2.
Okay.
So you see, it followed the command without it being line of sight. Another thing that this thing has, which I didn't mention earlier, which I think is really convenient, and that was another place where I had a toss-up between this cube and the Roku with the voice and headphone remote, because I don't want to have the surround sound on to disturb everyone sleeping. Rather, I can connect to Bluetooth to this device and put my Bluetooth headsets on and listen to it that way. Of course, if you have something like this where you can just plug in your headphones, which is what I'm doing now, it works. But if I'm getting a new device, I want to make sure it has a feature that most new devices has. And many devices nowadays have Bluetooth capabilities, so why not? This thing was really easy to set up. I know I'm very tech savvy, so I can go into ins and outs and set up all the different settings and kind of know what most of those things mean, but not everyone is tech savvy. You might be, which might be okay, but maybe you feel like this device may be good for like an elder parent or uncle or something like that. that is not very tech savvy, or just anyone not tech savvy, you could set this up for them, do all the stuff, and then have Alexa turned on, and they can easily control it with their voice. They never have to use a remote again, as long as it's a newer device. Like, I can just tell it to turn off the TV. Alexa, turn off the TV.
Okay.
One of the best features this device has that other devices, including the Roku, also has is to search across multiple sources of media. Let's just say there was a movie you wanted to watch, and it's like, all right, when I came home, I settled down, I'm going to watch this movie, but you can't remember which streaming service it was on. Was it on Prime? Was it on Netflix? Was it on Hulu? Was it on Crackle? Or some other service? This eliminates that problem. You can just search on the device by typing or by voice the name of your movie, show, music, or whatever it is, and it will search all of the devices and let you know if it's on a service that you already subscribe to or something that you have to pay for. For example, Alexa, show me the Blacklist.
Here's what I found.
So I can start watching on Netflix. So, at the end of all of this, will I recommend this product? I say astoundingly yes, because it checks all the boxes. It replaces everything that my old media player can do. It's ready for everything in 2020. It has 4K, it has HDR 4K, it has Dolby Digital 4K, Dolby Vision. It has pretty much any type of media that you're looking for. There are a ton of apps on here. I didn't have time to go through even a small section of them. I just picked the ones that I already know that I have, such as Netflix, Hulu, and most of those were already pre-installed. The only one I think I had to download, I think, was Disney Plus and VLC, I think. I think it was already there. For everything I was looking for, this checked all of the boxes, as I said. So, at the end of the day, I'm happy with it so far. It's only been 2 weeks. I can choose to turn on Alexa when I want to, or
Here's something I found on the web. According to Vox.com, the phrase "I want what I want when I want it" sums up this mindset, she says.
I can leave on the voice assistant person, or I can disable it by a touch of a button and you'll see a red light. I think it's found its home. The box has been sitting here. The shipping box has been sitting here like I always do. I keep things for at least 30 days or what the return policy is, just in case there's an issue. But I'm good. No issues so far. I'm ready for the satisfying peel of the remote. And of course, that satisfying peel, because I'm ready to say yes, this will stay here. So if you like these type of videos when I talk about tech items and DIY projects, things like going from incredibly old tech to newer tech, you can subscribe to this channel, and I'll have more of these videos and other videos similar to the ones you see on my video background. So once again, this is the review of the Amazon Fire TV Cube. This has been the Biafra Samurai Techie. Tech out.